What is going on? This is Dynasty After Party. We are going to have some fun tonight, stashing some players. Every good fantasy team starts with your draft, but it's built on who you stash. Let's get into it. What is going on, everybody? I am Gator J alongside my faithful co-host here, Joel Wirth. Tonight, we're going to dive into some stashes, buddy. Some rookies, some sophomores that could see a massive jump this next year, whether that's in production or usage itself. I'm stoked for this episode. I've been thinking about this episode for a couple weeks because we took the holiday off. So hopefully your holiday was good.
Yeah, excellent.
Did you gain pounds, or do we want to talk about that on air?
I think at my age, I'm just constantly gaining pounds. So I don't think that was any unique in any sort of way.
Does it? Yeah. So if the holiday necessarily did not add the pounds, you were adding them anyway. It was just a reason to sit a little bit longer and watch some more football.
Exactly.
I like it. Like I said, we're going to talk about some stashes. So let's dive in and start with this. Which position do you prioritize this late in the season, looking at your dynasty and who you want to stash?
So I'm going to say I'm usually going to be set at quarterback in most of my league. I'm going to prioritize having quarterbacks. So that's not something I'm usually looking to bottom scrape up. But usually running backs, because those are guys who can, they just need an opportunity, and they can get some runs. So, yeah, I just want to I want to have a solid core of wide receivers that I can count on, and then I just want to have a shit ton of running backs that I can just plug in any given week.
Right. I mean, we're seeing that, for instance, this week out in San Francisco, where somebody that was stashed, started the season very well. Somebody that ended up being the backup gets stashed. Now he's on IR. So now it's really the third string. And now they bring in a guy that I really liked in the draft last year. And that's Izzy Adebawakanda going over there. I don't know if he's going to do anything, but I think that's an interesting player this week and going further for this year. We may actually be able to bring him up here a little bit, because I think I'm with you. It is absolutely the running back position for me as well. They just seem to we talk about the short shelf life of running backs, and to me it just seems like that short shelf life is even the importance of it is even more at this point in the season, and then going into the offseason when it comes to dynasty, where you can use those small pieces, but they sometimes will bring you back good trade value.
Yeah, I mean, if you can, if you've got a roster of running backs that you're working from, and one of your guys just happens to get traded, happens to fall into a position, because there's going to be major attrition. This year has been a major outlier in the running back position, right? Usually we see a ton of attrition at the running back position and not receivers, and this year's been the complete opposite. So us zero RB guys are kind of taking it on the short and curlies this year, but I mean, that's kind of the way it goes. You're kind of dancing with fire using that strategy, but most years it works. But yeah, so once these guys get opportunities, that's when they become valuable, and that's when you can move them for picks. You can move them in packages for better players from the teams that are kind of desperate to be able to fill in their starting lineup.
Yep, 100% agree with you there. Listen, I don't want to stay on all night long, and I know we allot about an hour, but I also know that the Pack game is on or fixing to start in about 10, 15 minutes or so. So I definitely want to get through this, make sure we give out all the good information, and then get the hell off so you can go and enjoy your Pack. And hopefully, half of me wants the Pack to win and and get Detroit at 11-2. The other half just wants me to say no, let Detroit go undefeated all the way through, and that way my Bucks can say we're the only team to beat them. But that's that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about some some quarterbacks. First guy let's bring up is Will Levis, very interesting player out of Tennessee for the Titans. 25 years old, drafted in the second round. 18 total games in his NFL career, 3,467 yards, 20 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. And right before the show, I was telling you, Joel, that the one thing that stands out to me that was really interesting when I was looking at his stats is he played 9 games last year. He's played 9 games this year. And if you look at the numbers, they are super, super close. For somebody that's only played 2 years, this guy is almost dead on for both years. What's your thoughts on Will Levis?
I think the interesting thing about him is, like 6 weeks ago, I think everyone just assumed that they were going to move on, they were going to find a different quarterback, and he was going to be done and just relegated to the dustbin of history. Nothing's for sure, but it looks like he's probably still going to be the guy there next year, and a lot of that probably has to do with that it's a really terrible quarterback class next year, and you legitimately may not find anybody in the draft who's better than Will Levis. And that's really more of a condemnation of this draft class than it is a celebration of Will Levis. But I think there's a very real chance that he's the starter next year. And, that kind of goes against conventional wisdom that we had, maybe 5-6 weeks ago.
Yeah, I was pretty stoked to see what he was going to do this year. And it's basically exactly the same as it was last year. I would like to see Tennessee give him one more shot. He's got a brand new offense, that sort of thing. They did move a couple pieces away from him, added a Tony Pollard in that system. I think in a super flex, I think he's a very valuable third quarterback.
Yes, exactly.
And I would not be opposed, depending on how you build your team and how deep your rosters are, have him as even your fourth, but at the highest, the QB2 on your team right now.
Yeah, I don't want him starting for my team, but I think he's a viable backup plan, right? And we've seen in Superflex, you need that backup plan. We've seen Dak Prescott get hurt, Brock Purdy get hurt for a couple of weeks. So yeah, those things are going to happen. You're going to need your buys happen. You're going to want that third quarterback. So I'd really like to see them go out and get an elite wide receiver, whether it's Tet McMillan, Luther Burden, whatever. There are some solid receiver prospects in this class. I would really like to see them go out and get him a young playmaker that he can kind of build with and just see what happens.
Yep, agree. Let's move over to the next guy, and let's talk about Michael Penix over there in Atlanta. 24 years old, drafted in the first round. I believe it was the 8th overall pick? 8th overall pick to Atlanta, which was surprised a lot of people. Has not played that much, except garbage time here and there. But he does have 38 yards on the year. Played in 2 games, 60% completion rate. I understand Kirk Cousins is going to be there for a minute if you just follow the money, but going and getting this guy early, this is a hell of a backup plan right here for Atlanta. And so I'm asking you, should I want him on my taxi squad?
Yeah, for sure. I think he barely qualifies as a stash, because I don't know that you can kind of go and like most of these guys that we're going to talk about tonight, you can just kind of go and they're only going to cost you like a roster spot, right? Something like that. Yeah. He's going to cost you. Like, he was probably a late first, very early second in drafts and Superflex this year. So, and I think with Kirk Cousins' struggles of late, I think there's a real sentiment that he has a real shot to be the starter there next year, if not this year. I don't think that's going to happen, just because, it's a team that's trying to win a division. They're going to want the veteran in there. I don't think they want to give him, his first real NFL work in the middle of a kind of stretch run of a playoff run. That's as tight as it is. But yeah, I think there's a real chance that he's the starter there next year.
That would be a shock to me just watching the money. They got 60 million,
that's absolutely true.
So it would be interesting. It's Atlanta. We've seen NFL teams do crazier things. Denver, how you doing? But I do see everybody in the chat there. Keep those coming. We will get to you here as soon as we get done with these quarterbacks here. I do want to bring up two more guys real quickly. Hendon Hooker out of Detroit, 26 years old, third rounder from 2 years ago, and somebody that's starting right now, which I don't, again, like you just said about Michael Penix, I don't know that he would classify as a stash right now, is Aiden O'Connell out of Las Vegas, 26 years old, a fourth rounder 2 years ago, 16 games, over 3,000 yards, 16 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Either of these guys pique your interest for any reason?
No, I just wasn't super high on these guys as prospects. And I think, well, I mean, Hooker we haven't really seen, but he had the knee injury coming out of college. They signed Jared Goff. Jared Goff's not that old, right? I mean, he's only like 30, so he's not, he's 29, 30. He's not really old. It's not like he's, fading out. Like he's Matt Stafford, where he's going to be gone in a year or two. So yeah, I don't know what opportunity he's going to have outside of a Jared Goff injury. And O'Connell's just shown that he's not an NFL starter. He's probably a capable backup, but he's not a starting caliber player.
Yeah, Jared Goff just turned 30, like 60 days ago, something like that. Let's see, Jordan Travis with the Jets. There could be an interesting one, depending on your thought process, what they're going to do with Aaron Rodgers or going forward. 24 years old, fifth rounder last year.
Yeah, Travis, to me, I liked him as a college quarterback, but he had just a devastating knee injury. His knee just got shredded. Hasn't really been able to come back from that. He's really kind of a Kenny Pickett guy too, and that he's got really small hands, and it shows up on the tape. And that he can just be just kind of really wild, just out of nowhere. Will he just throw a pass to the sideline? He'll just fly up. So, yeah, I don't know that anybody's really looking at him as a long-term starter again. Like O'Connell, I think his best case is a career backup.
And then we got two more guys on here. One is doing great things right now in Carolina. That's Bryce Young, 23, first overall pick last year. Again, don't know if you can classify him as a stash because of what he's doing currently.
Yeah, but like Levis, he's a guy that, even a month ago we thought was just, there was no way he was going back to Carolina. They were going to draft they were going to go into the draft. They were going to have the number 1 overall pick. They were going to draft somebody, and he was going to end up traded somewhere. He's looking like a foundation piece now. It's 2 games, but we've seen gradual improvement. He's starting to look like the kid he was at Alabama, just more decisive and just like he wants to be on the field and isn't afraid of getting killed. So I think there's been some real development there. And I would be shocked if he's not. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if Will Levis isn't the quarterback in Tennessee next year. I'd be surprised. I'd be shocked if Bryce Young is not the quarterback in Carolina next year.
Yeah, I agree. I think Josh and I have had this conversation as long and as well as Ryan. It's shocking to have the novel concept of a young quarterback sitting for a couple games or a year and let him learn and look what happens, kind of a thing. I don't know who. Some team up north where the white stuff falls out of the sky has done that a couple times, and they've only had really 3 quarterbacks in like 700 years. I don't know who that is, but anyway, Green Bay, how you doing?
Even that Mahomes guy had to sit for a year too, so
it's
Brady, not unprecedented.
Brady started at the end of his first year, I guess, but that's okay.
I'm not that I'm comparing Bryce Young to Patrick Mahomes, but it's that's the deal. I mean, sometimes these guys, it takes a while for these guys to develop.
Right on. JJ McCarthy out of Minnesota, 21, first rounder, gets injured in the preseason, out for the year. The reason I put him up here, again, I understand the stats. There's no stats to go off here. I don't know if you can classify him as a stash, and that's simply because of his draft capital. However, because it was, 20 weeks ago that the injury happened, a lot of people have forgot about him, and they've made some other moves in order to shore up their quarterback position. Maybe this guy is just sitting on their taxi squad, and you might be able to get him for next to nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it on the head. The draft capital is going to keep him from being, free or just a roster spot. But I mean, look what Sam Darnold is doing. I mean, the guy's been floating around, was a high pick, and floated around the league and really couldn't get any traction anywhere until this year under Kevin O'Connell. He's not under contract for next year. He signed a 1-year deal with them. So I still think it's highly likely that we've heard some talk about them re-signing or Darnold. And it's like if they make a deep playoff run, they may have to. But, unless and until that happens, I think we have to assume that McCarthy's going to be their starter next year and is going to be very fun. Like Kevin O'Connell is just, I freaking hate it, but he's a really good coach.
It's gonna be fun to see him grow with having this 1 year to sit there and watch Sam Darnold learn the offense. It's gonna be an absolute blast watching him throw the ball constantly to Jay Jettis and Addison and a healthy Hawk. I mean, it's gonna be a beautiful sight. And he's gonna have the infrastructure that that a Levis or a Bryce Young doesn't have, at least yet. He's got Jefferson, he's got Addison, he's got Hawkinson, probably Aaron Jones. I mean, he's got a good offensive line. I mean, they've just got the infrastructure to be a very good offense and just need basically the quarterback to kind of run it. Gonna be, like I say, gonna be fun to watch. Let's get over to the chat real quick. Good afternoon, good evening, Albert. Good day, legends. Vince Mapstone, how are we doing, sir? Glad to see you're awake.
Want to say good luck to Vince and Scott Fishbowl. He's absolutely killing it. So
8 overall.
Good luck in the playoffs this week. Yeah,
number 8 overall. What happened there, right? Vince was in our Scott Fishbowl mocks every time we had one. That's what it was. We've got it done. Kay wants to know, are we starting Purdy or Herbie? And I'm assuming, again, just this week, we'll answer this question for you, no problem. But I will highly recommend come back Saturday morning for Start Sit Different Day. I'm actually going to be on that show. So yeah, me and Josh, and I believe Brandon's going to be there as well. So it'll be the three of us, and we'll get your start sits at 11 a.m. on Saturday morning. But which one are you starting, Purdy or Herbert?
I'm starting Herbert. I do have a league where I have to make this decision, and I'm starting. I don't think you can overstate what the loss of Trent Williams means to this 49ers offense. So I just feel, Herbert was disappointing for fantasy last week, but obviously that was a weird game flow. So they're gonna have to put up some points if they want to beat KC. So yeah, I'm gonna start Herbert.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. Trent Williams not being there, it's messing with you've got basically their third string running back. They're working with we talked about this pre-show with wide receivers that they don't even throw the ball to. It's not a great situation out there in San Francisco. And like you said, I think with Herbert, Kansas City plays down or up to the competition. And I think that game is going to be a shootout Sunday night. Vince says, Will Levis only relevant because of Nick the Trick, the Hall of Fame wide receiver. Like it, Vince. Parkway over there on Twitch, London or Reed at Flex. I guess if you didn't start Reed already, you're starting London. But
yeah, I would start London either way. I think that game's gonna be an absolute shootout. You get the Kirk Cousins revenge game. Yeah, I think that game's gonna shoot out.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fun game to watch as well. Vince, I have a lot of Penix. Seemed to be a ridiculous value at mid-second round rookie drafts last year. Was he? I wasn't seeing him go in the second round that I remember.
I saw quite a bit where he went like early second round in 12-team drafts, but yeah, most of the time he was a late first, early second. I did see a few drafts where he went mid-second just because teams thought that, our managers thought that he would just have to sit behind. He would get the Jordan Love treatment, right? He would have to sit for probably at least 2 years. I think that's kind of. I don't like that way of thinking. If you have a quarterback that you think is like good quarterbacks are going to find their way on the field. That's just the way it's going to be. So, but yeah, I did see him fall to the mid-second in a few drafts, mostly early second.
I'm 100% with you here, and Vince brings it up. The quarterback Amari Cooper found his way on the field last week, so didn't even get credit for a pass, but that's beside the point.
It was really a handoff, but
yeah. His Super Bowl, his Scott Fishbowl team is Tyrone Tracy, Juwan Jennings, or four. This is for SFB. Tyrone Tracy, Juwan Jennings, or kick specialist Darius Davis against Kansas City.
I don't know how you're benching Tracy, especially against New Orleans. That defense is bad. They're going to be on the road. I'm starting Tracy. Like Darius Davis, yeah, I can see that, but like Dave Tobe's a really good special teams coordinator, and they're going to be on Sunday night. So I'd be kind of leery about starting a returner against Case. A lot of these kickoffs just go into the end zone anyway. So I don't know how you're benching Tracy.
Yeah, I think right now it's Tracy for me as well. You want to dominate your Dynasty leagues? Check out Club Fantasy's newest partner, Dynasty Nerds, with tools like the Nerd Score for rookie rankings, all 22 film, player analysis, and the Dynasty Trade Calculator, the best to find your Dynasty trade values. They've got everything you need to win now and build for the future. Just go over to dynastynerds.com. Use promo code Club Fantasy to save 15% on any subscription plan. Do not miss your chance to take your Dynasty game to the next level. Let's move over to the running back position here, and we have I've got a few of them in here. I'll read off their names real quick. You just let me know if you want to highlight any of these guys. I don't think you will right off, but Kendre Miller, Tajay Spears, Israel Adebakanda, Chris Rodriguez seems to be an interesting name right now. Blake Corum, Will Shipley, Rasheen Ali, Dylan Lobb, and then Kamani Vidal. Of course, everybody's going crazy down there in LA with that one there. Any of those guys jump out at you right away and go, yes, I need to go stash this guy, or this guy's definitely a guy I want to go stash?
Man, like Kendre Miller is just a massive disappointment to me. I really liked him coming out of TCU. Just hasn't been able to stay healthy, and it's more than just a Dennis Allen thing. So I think there's some potential there, but you would think that in a loaded running back class, they're probably going to move on. So unfortunately, yeah, I'm not seeing it with him. Spears, again, he's had concussions. He's only got one ACL. It's just not working.
Senior Bowl Prince, though.
Yeah, very much so. I do like Chris Rodriguez, but again, he's like, I liked him coming into the year. I had a bunch of shares coming in, and then, he was put on the practice squad right away. He's certainly not. He's very similar to Brian Robinson, but he's not beating out Brian Robinson. So tough to see him having a long-term role there. Shipley, maybe, but we just haven't. He hasn't been able to beat out Kenny Gainwell, so I don't know about that. But I do like Vidal. I think there's a chance. I think they're going to bring back J.K. Dobbins, and Gus Edwards is probably done. He looks absolutely cooked. So. And he's a guy I think his value could grow a little bit here in the last 5 weeks of the season and maybe into the playoffs.
Yeah, the two that on there that I'm not necessarily rushing to go grab, but if they're there and available and I have the free spot for them, Rasheen Ali is somebody that I've got a pretty good amount of shares for with. Again, it's just playing the odds of the running back position having the injuries, and then like you brought up Chris Rodriguez there. Let's talk about the thumbnail guy here, and that's Trey Benson, 21 years old, 3rd round draft pick. He was my RB1 coming out of Florida State this past year. Definitely somebody I have a few shares of. How about you?
I don't have a ton of shares, and I'm kind of regretting it. Because I do think even with the James Conner extension, I think he's going to have a pretty big role next year. We're seeing his role kind of increase as the season goes on. Early in the season, it seemed like they just didn't trust him. Obviously, he couldn't get on the field in front of Amari DiMercato. We heard in preseason that the coaching staff didn't trust him, but he's finally starting to get some runs. So it's not finally seems like he's getting the offense, and he's getting on the field. He's getting snaps. He's getting touches. So I think that role is just going to continue to grow. So yeah, he's someone I wish I had more shares of.
Yeah, I like him a good bit. Another one that wasn't super high on. I feel the same way you feel about Trey Benson, about Roschon Johnson over there in Chicago, 23 4th round pick. I know you like Roschon as well, don't you?
It's really interesting. Like last year, he was their like kind of preferred like hurry up offense, 2-minute guy, and now this year he's just been kind of used as just a goal line back, which is really weird. So I just don't trust DeAndre Swift long term, and I don't know that they're paying Swift a lot of money, so I don't know that they're going to want to go into the draft and spend real high draft capital on running back. So I think he's going to have an opportunity to probably carve out a role for himself again next year. And we saw that with Khalil Herbert, right? He just kind of hung around and just made himself invaluable to the team for a couple of years.
Yeah, he's Roschon to me is right now, like you said, is valuable for fantasy because he's there and he's getting those goal line touches. Hopefully, there was a time though a few weeks ago we thought it was just going to implode and it was just going to be all Roschon, and then DeAndre came right back in and said, "No, this is still my backfield."
Well, I mean, early in the year, like the first 3-4 weeks of the season, like DeAndre Swift was the worst running back in the league. He was just terrible. Then, obviously the offense kind of found its groove a little bit, but yeah, there was certainly a time where it looked like Roschon was just going to take over.
Yep. One more that I want to bring up on the running back position here is Marshawn Lloyd over there in Green Bay, 23, third round pick for your Packers. Haven't seen much of him at all.
At all.
Is he still there? Is he still in Green Bay, or what's going on with Marshawn Lloyd?
He is. He had he went on IR with a knee injury, I think, and then right when he came, as soon as he got activated, he had appendicitis and had to go have surgery. And that was really like this season has been my scouting report on Marshawn Lloyd in a nutshell. In that, I thought he was a really talented guy with the ball in his hands, but just the things that you need to do to be able to get on the field and to earn snaps and earn coaches' trust, he's terrible at. Like ball security, pass protection, availability. Just those things were all problems in college, and they've all been problems this year. So I have very serious concerns about whether this guy just feels like he's going to be just a perpetual tease and just never going to kind of pan out as a productive fantasy player.
Yeah, there was a good bit of people out there that had Marshawn as their RB1 in the class.
Yeah.
And being down here, in the Southeast, I saw a lot of him for the couple years that he was at South Carolina. And that's something that I noticed it was hard for him to hold on to the ball for whatever reason. And I didn't drop him, but I think I had him third or fourth in the RB class. So I didn't drop him a ton, but it's still, it's you're doing not only your team and the real NFL a disservice, but you're doing your fantasy manager a disservice by not being able to hang on to the ball and always giving it up. So I just did not want to have too many shares of. I don't think I might have one or two shares at the most across the board there. Anybody else you want to bring up in the running back area?
I guess we should talk about Blake Corum. He's someone I wasn't super high on, and that has kind of played out this year as well, where he just hasn't been able to carve out a role in front of Kyren Williams. But, Kyren Williams is a small guy. He's always going to be looked at as kind of fragile. So I think there will always be a market for a guy like Blake Corum.
Well, I mean, they still need punt returners and kick returners. And oh, goodness. Pate says, Kamani Vidal or Tank Bigsby this week. Again, I will recommend you go wait till Saturday to make this choice. But Joel, go right ahead.
I don't trust Vidal yet. I like him long term, but I don't trust him yet. I think it's got to be Bigsby, especially against Tennessee. That team just looked terrible last week against Washington. So I think you got to start Bigsby.
Vince saying thanks, Legends. He's going to watch foosball. So we'll catch up with him next week. And just a quick update. I guess it's 7-0. I missed it. I missed the touchdown there. Daniel, hello from Mexico. Should I start Khalil Shakir or Keenan Allen?
That's a tough one. I guess I would probably start Keenan Allen because it sounds like DJ Moore is a little questionable. So if that passing game consolidates at all, I would kind of lean toward Keenan Allen. But Shakir's a fine start this week as well, although I do think they're going to try and keep the ball on the ground with James Cook a little bit more.
I mean, after watching James Cook run the ball last week in the snow the way he ran it, I don't know why you wouldn't try to at least get in the ball a couple of times to start with.
It's probably really format dependent too, right? If it's very touchdown heavy, then it's obviously Keenan Allen. If it's more PPR heavy, then you may want to lean towards Shakir.
Yeah, I think just right off, I lean Keenan Allen because he's getting he's averaging over the last, six games, all up, and he's averaging double-digit targets, catching, 7 to 8 of those targets on the average, six on the average, and he's gotten in the end zone 4 times in that time span. Keenan Allen just does not age. I don't think, and I think that I do like Shakir's matchup this week. But it's man, I don't know how you sit Keenan Allen in that instance there, right?
Yeah, I would definitely lean toward Keenan Allen.
All right, let's talk about a couple of wide receivers. We got Marvin Mims out there in Denver, Trey Tucker in Vegas, Darius Davis with the Chargers, Trey Palmer in Tampa, Xavier Hutchinson in Houston, Malachi Corley at the Jets, Roman Wilson in Pittsburgh, Jacob Crowning in San Francisco, and Malik Washington. I'll start with those guys. I know that's a list, but starting with those guys real quickly, any of those names jump off the page at you and go, yes, I want to get that guy.
Malik Washington, I think, is still interesting. He's starting to get a little bit more time as the season goes on. I think we're seeing that Odell Beckham is just washed and there's nothing there. He's not even getting used. I mean, he's getting snaps, but he's not getting used at all in the passing game. So I think as the season rolls on, we'll see a bit more of him. And I think he's someone who's interesting. Marvin Mims, and the draft capital is always going to stand out. But he just doesn't earn targets in that offense. So, I mean, I think he's always going to have his supporters, and that there's always going to be people who are high on him based on his draft profile and his draft capital. But I just don't see it. So, and I liked him as a prospect too. I thought he was like a 3rd rounder, so I was a little surprised he got the 2nd round draft capital. But like, he just couldn't get on the field last year. He couldn't get on the field ahead of guys like little Jordan Humphrey and whoever, Brandon Johnson or whoever else they were using in front of him. So that's a really bad. That's really bad for your long-term outlook.
Played in 13 games this year. He's got 265 yards.
That's not good.
105 of them came last week versus Denver.
93 of them on one play.
Right. As much as we when I say we, I'm referring to Stacey Perez and myself. As much as we loved him coming out, it is harder and harder to support him. The one guy that stands out to me here is very similar. Doesn't get the targets or anything like that, and that's Malachi Corley. And the main reason he stands out is because of what was going on in New York in the offseason with him staying at Rodgers' house. You would think that they would have built some sort of rapport. And I understand that of course, Adams is there now, but he wasn't there for the first half of the year. I would have thought that Corley built some sort of relationship with him, and it wasn't him at all. It was Lazard, I guess.
Yeah, he did seem to get a little bit more, at least opportunity last week. Get an end zone target. I think they gave him the ball in end around. So
that's because he built Taco Bell over at Devontae's new house.
Yeah. At least he's starting to see the field. So he's going to have to do something down the stretch for him to be a consideration going into next year.
Yeah, we shall see what happens next year, quarterback wise, and then maybe that will determine what's going to happen with Malachi Corley. Let's talk about Luke McCaffrey over there in Washington. Let's see, he's 23 years old and he was drafted in the 3rd round. A little surprised he hasn't got the usage this year with that 3rd round capital and only having the other one wide receiver. There's some guy named Kerry Stary or some Scary Stary or something other.
Yeah, I mean, he's getting snaps. That's the good thing. He hasn't got a ton of targets, which is disappointing, but he's getting a lot of slot snaps when they go to three wide receivers. They just don't do that often. So yeah, but I think it's a good sign that he is kind of their default slot. So even though his numbers aren't really good, I think there's a chance he has a role going into next year. Although if they sign someone like T. Higgins or something like that, or go out and get another elite receiver, then how much opportunities are you going to have as the 3rd receiver in a pretty loaded, 2 wide receiver set?
I don't know that he is getting the snaps though. He's only 41%. 41% in 13 games is not a lot.
No, but I mean, he's getting slot snaps. So, I mean, you're going to if you're kind of a wide receiver 3 slot guy, you're going to max out around 66%. So the fact that he's a rookie getting 41% of the slot snaps, I think is okay, even though, yeah, he doesn't really have the numbers to make. I think he's a stash guy, right? If you can
Absolutely
get him for nothing and get him and throw in a trade, and I think he's worth a roster spot. Let's put it that way.
Well, yeah. And depending on how your league is built, you can always throw him on the taxi squad for 2 years sometimes. So
Sure.
That's not I don't hate it. I do I like him as a player coming out of Rice as well. And he's got the name. So let's roll with that, right?
Pedigree.
Yeah, he's got the pedigree. Dontavian Wicks, Packers, 23, fifth rounder.
Yeah, Wicks is a guy you basically could have gotten for free last year. He usually wasn't even drafted, so I have a ton of him because I could just get him off of waivers. And you were getting kind of the dream with these guys is you were getting offers of second round, third round picks for him. I held on because he would he had the kind of analytic rookie season that you're really excited about, but this year's been really bad. So there may be some teams or some managers that are kind of down on him or maybe willing to move on. I think there's a very real chance that they trade Romeo Doubs in the offseason and he becomes he just gets a lot more snaps and a lot more opportunities. The drops will fix themselves, right? Drops, it's been bad this year, but we've seen guys like Devontae Adams really struggle with drops in the past. So I'm not going to hold that against him. So I think there's going to be a real opportunity for him to be kind of the number on the field a lot more next year.
I like him as a player. I do have a problem with his drops, and I think the reason that kind of we don't worry about them as much in this instance is because there are a couple other wide receivers on that team right now that can pick him up when that happens. Very, very the complete opposite of what they have going on over in the Chargers right now. When Quentin Johnston drops a ball or 5 balls or 7 balls on a game, and they've only got one player and Lad McConkey, who is a rookie this year, they can pick up that team, whereas Dontavian Wicks at least has a couple other players that backing him up for that. The drops do worry me a little bit, though. But like you said, if it's somebody like me, and I've got Dontavian Wicks, and that I'm worried about the drops, you can come get him for a little bit cheaper from me than you're going to be able to get him from Joel. So know your league, know your league, know your league.
And he didn't have a problem with drops last year. So that's the reason it's concentration. He's putting too much pressure on himself. It's, he's just stressing too much. So I don't think it's a long-term issue, but, and they become magnified because he's not getting a ton of snaps, right? Because right now he's the number 4 guy. He's not getting a ton of snaps. They're a really run heavy offense. Like they're the lowest pass rate over expectation in the league right now. So there's just not a lot of opportunities. So the drops kind of get magnified and, he's just really putting a lot of pressure on himself. So, yeah, I don't think this is a long-term problem.
Ricky Pierce, San Francisco 49ers, 24 years old, first round, the end of the first round for this past year. Very interesting, very, very interesting to me, Joel. And I was telling you this beforehand. Understand, getting shot in, early in the season, missing a few games. They've had other issues at wide receiver in San Francisco, and for some reason, the guy gets on the field, and they just do not get him the ball. 61% snap share in the 6 games or so that he's played. Only 18 targets for this man.
Yeah, like we said before, I think that's a function of the offense just kind of collapsing. They had the game against the Packers where they just couldn't move the ball at all with Brandon Allen. Was that his name? I forgot already.
Brandon Allen.
Pretty hurt. Last week they had the snow game. So there's kind of been some circumstances, I guess, that have kind of worked against him. But yeah, I'm not going to give up hope on him. I fully believe that they're going to move on from Deebo Samuel this offseason. They're probably going to have to. He's really not giving them anything. So. Yeah, and they need to get younger at wide receiver. So I think he's going to get more opportunity next year. So, yeah, if you've got a contending manager who's, kind of fed up with him and looking for someone that they can put into a starting spot, then he's someone I'd be more than happy to stash.
Yeah, I super high on Ricky Pearsall this year. Or as a stash, if you can stash him. I have him on a couple taxi squads, and the ones I can't have him on the taxi squad, he is on my bench or on the was on the IR to start the year. So Jelly of the Month says just got offered. Oh, he corrected it. He said he was offered Jamar Chase in a last minute trade deadline move. He popped on the injury report today. Do you think that he plays, or Cincinnati shuts him down if they lose?
I don't think he's getting he's got numbers that he wants to hit. Like he's going to want to be the highest paid receiver in the league. He's going to want to have numbers. He's going to put up those. He's not shutting himself down. Let's put it that way. So T Higgins, I'm worried about that. I'm worried about him making business decisions, but he's not going to be there next year. So he has some animosity with the organization, with them, putting the franchise tag on him. He's going to be gone. So, yeah, T. Higgins I'd be worried about shutting down. Chase is not going to shut himself down, and I don't think they're going to shut Burrow down either. So maybe, week 18, but I don't think during the fantasy regular season or playoffs he's going to shut himself down. So, no, I'm not concerned about that at all.
Now, Jelly, I'd love to see what they were wanting to get for Jamar there, but I'm with Joel on this. I would probably make the trade. Go ahead and put Chase right up in the lineup. Call it a done day, a done deal, and not even think twice about it. Jamar Chase is not shutting it down. Cincinnati probably won't shut him down either. Jamar wants to get paid, like Joel was saying, and this is his time to shine right here. So I would absolutely probably make that trade depending on what they wanted in return. Let's talk about Trophy Smack. Fantasy managers, it's never too early to start planning for your league's championship, your commissioners, and for those not so lucky winners. Make this season an unforgettable one with Trophy Smack. From championship rings, trophies, plaques, wall smack, even the hilarious losers trophies, Trophy Smack has everything you need to take your league to the next level. Don't wait. Head over to TrophySmack.com/WOFF right now. Check out their incredible selection. That's TrophySmack.com/WOFF. Use the unique link to support the show and lock down your league's bragging rights today. All right, Joel, one last segment. We get to talk about some tight ends here. Not really sure there's a lot to talk about when it comes to tight ends. It's like the normal fantasy year, right? Couple guys on here: Michael Mayer, Brendan Strange, Darnell Washington, who I think is quite interesting, getting a little bit of run there in Pittsburgh. Cameron Latu, is that right? Did I say that right?
Yep.
Okay. Josh Weil, Will Mallory. Josh Wiley, Will Mallory, Zach Kuntz, Ben Sinnott, who I really like this season. I think getting to learn from Zach Ertz is really nice. Any of those guys jump off the page?
I've always had a thing for Darnell Washington, just the way he was used at Georgia.
Stacey Perez does too, because she says his hands are the size of a sheet of paper.
They are
to cover the whole paper.
And he's also on the field all the time because he's such a good blocker. Like he's a legitimate third tackle. So I do like him, especially in I don't think he's great in tight end premium leagues because he's never going to get a ton of volume. But if you're in a non-tight end premium league where touchdowns are kind of really important, I think he's a guy who could be kind of an end zone threat. So if you're looking at guys who are just kind of touchdown or bust, I think he's a really good option. He's a huge dude. He's going to be in there in those goal line situations. So I do like him kind of in those, in non-tight end premium leagues. The rest, not a ton. Ben Sinnott is probably a really good player, but I don't think he's a good fantasy player. It's that to me, he was always an H-back. He was a Kyle Juszczyk type. So I don't know that he's someone. Is he worth a roster spot? Sure. But I don't think, whoever drafted him spent probably a solid second round pick on because he had a lot of steam behind him in the draft process. So I don't think anyone's kind of giving up on him or just, moving on from him cheaply. I think they want to see it through.
Theo Johnson, Jaheim Bell, either one of those guys. I like Theo Johnson in New York. I just don't know that he's going to get any real quarterback play.
Jaheim Bell, no. Johnson, yeah, just because tight ends take a while to develop, right? That's just the prevailing wisdom. And Theo Johnson was he was a Canadian kid, so he wasn't even recruited to go to school. He had to go to a tryout to go to Penn State. So I think there's a chance that he could just kind of develop in the pros more than he did in college. Plus, he played for James Franklin, who's terrible at developing football players. He can only develop athletes. So I think it's a good sign that he's gotten as much run as he has, as many snaps as he has. So he's someone I am definitely interested in stashing.
Jatavion Sanders just turned 21, or about to turn 22, rather. 4th round pick there in Carolina. I like this kid coming out of Texas. I think what he did his last year in Texas, I don't know, he found some kind of glue or something that didn't drop a single pass that was in his target area. Or his catch.
Yeah, I like Jatavion Sanders coming out. He had some issues with blocking in that he was capable and willing, but he would just do some really kind of sloppy things with his hands and do a lot of stuff in college that would get called for penalties in the pros. So I was worried about that. But like Carolina's just not using him to block at all. They're just using him kind of as a flex tight end. So I think that he's like Tommy Tremble and Ian Thomas are not going to be impediments to him kind of taking that role. The neck injury was kind of scary, but it sounds like he's back to practice and he maybe even playing this week. So he's someone I'm definitely interested in stashing, especially in tight end premium leagues, because I think he's going to be more of a flex tight end than a blocking tight end.
Yeah, I like the way they've used him over what the last taking of course the last 2 games out or whatever it was that he's been out with Tampa, and then I believe it was Kansas City, right? Take those games out. The usage seems to have started to go up on a, and it's not even a 45-degree angle right now. It's more of a 60, 65-degree angle. Yeah. The usage has just gone skyrocketed for him. And Bryce Young at the same time, seemingly finding Jatavion Sanders is actually figured out that, hey, that works in the NFL. So I do like Jatavion Sanders. The next one on the list is Eric All, out of Cincinnati Bengals tight end there, 24 years old, drafted in the 4th round. This is the kid that went to Michigan and then transferred to tight end U.
Tight end U, yep. Yeah, just really, really disappointing that he's a super talented kid, but he's just had brutal injury luck. He tore an ACL, then tore an ACL in the pros this year. So I think it's going to take a while, right? You're probably not going to get anything out of him next year. And then you're going to run the risk that that the Bengals just draft someone or sign someone in free agency, and he just never really has a chance. So you got to have roster spots. He's a deep league, deep roster spot player only, but man, the talent is really enticing. So if he ever could get healthy and ever could, get himself a job, I think he's someone who could be a really, really interesting fantasy player.
Yeah, like you said, I think it's unfortunate with the injuries with him. There are a couple guys on here that have that same issue, whether they're second year, first year players here with the injuries, and it's not healthy for a tight end to have injuries early in their career. Not getting the playing time, not getting the actual time on the field does not help them. Not in any position, but it absolutely hurts the tight end position. I'm one that believes that the tight end position is the second hardest player or second hardest position to learn in the NFL outside of the quarterback position.
Yep. Agreed.
All right, Joel, let's wrap this thing up and go watch some football ourselves here. A couple quick takeaways for this from the show for me is always evaluating the offenses that are rebuilding or having coaching changes. Monitor playoff contenders, resting veterans, and practice squad promotions like we have seen over the last couple of weeks. A couple practice squad guys getting called up for the game and then getting dropped right back down. What's his name? And Sincere McCormick is one that it comes right to mind for me. Wide receivers. Prioritize wide receivers that are tied to young quarterbacks. It is we've seen it with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. We've seen it with guys, that young wide receivers and young quarterbacks are just a cheat code, in my opinion, for dynasty fantasy football. Focus on athletic tight ends that see the field consistently. That is that Jatavion Sanders, Darnell Washington is like Joel was bringing up. I don't care that they can't block. I'm not putting them on my fantasy roster so they can block. So
exactly. I don't get points for pancakes.
Don't get points for pancakes. Joe, anything to add to the show before we get out of here?
Just the obligatory go pack go.
Go pack go. Yeah, 7-0 still, and Detroit has the ball on their own 20. The shows coming out on the Club Fantasy Network. Tomorrow morning, DFS Academy with Ryan and Austin going over the DFS cash game and GPP preview for the weekend. Saturday morning, I brought it up earlier, start, sit, different day. Josh and Joe answering all of your start, sit questions this week. I will be on there. Not sure if Joe's going to make it or not, but Josh and I will be on there, I believe. Brandon Hay is going to be on there as well. Monday morning, I am back with Monday's Anxiety. It's our weekly recap show. Tuesday morning, normally at 11 a.m., Wiretapped with Ryan and Josh. That is the waiver wire show. Don't know if they're going to do one this week or not, but we'll find out. Well, we'll see. Tuesday night at 9 is Trade Block. That's Dusty, Joel, and the Hoove. Jumping on this week. Who do y'all got on this week? Are y'all doing K-Dotton this week?
Yep,
K-Dotton this week. Wednesday, 8 p.m. is Cleat Dreams. That is the Women of Fantasy Football's podcast with Renee and Kelly. Wednesday night at 9, no pun intended. That is Joe, Josh, and Ryan, the weekly preview of what's to come. Thursday morning, Oh Captain, My Captain, Josh and Josh and Austin going over the Thursday DFS Showdown. And then right before us is the Sneaky Flex Girls, who have been nailing it lately. Awesome. And then we are back at 8 p.m. for a Dynasty After Party next week. That is a lot of shows, Joe. And man, I tell you what, I'm tired of talking now. That's a lot. Well, if you don't have anything else to add for today, for Joel, I'm Gator, and we will see y'all next week.